Hello, everybody. Welcome back to All Our Parts. I am so excited to introduce to you all my guest. She is a coach that helps people manifest and create their dream lives. Louise, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
So, just to start, tell us a bit about what your work is.
Yeah. So I love my work's followed like a journey and it's evolved over time. And where I'm kind of at now, it's almost like a culmination of different modalities and things that I've learned over the last 15 years through really helping people to create what it is they want to experience in life from the inside out. But from a foundation of realizing that they're not broken and they don't need fixing, and they have everything they need already within them to create what it is that they want. They're just at a point of a lack of understanding of who it is they truly are and the power that they already possess to create what it is that they want to see in their lives.
I love that because you're essentially approaching the person that they are already whole.
Mm.
They already have everything that they need, and so many other practices don't always approach the person that way. We sometimes want to scrape from the past or work our way from the bottom to the top, whereas you really approach it from what internally is going on to then manifest out externally. And I love that your website prioritizes joy.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. I think that's so important because, everything that we experience in life is always an inside job first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like the more we begin to understand that, we can tap into the resources that we already have. Whereas for so long, even in my work in the early days when I was focused so much on mindset from a traditional kind of personal development NLP perspective, the foundational premise was that there's something wrong with you. You have limiting beliefs and blocks and things that you need to change and fix and overcome in order to then be good enough to have what it is that you want, as opposed to now it's like really seeing that actually we already have everything that we need and we're not broken. We don't need fixing. We're just stuck in misunderstanding about how our experience of life is being created, and that we can tap into anything we want to experience from where we are right now, joy being one of those things.
Oh. You said your career has taken a journey. Where did you start off before you built this business?
Yeah, good question. So I've been in business now in one way, shape, or form for 15 years. So I used to have I started a social enterprise actually when I was 19, and within a couple of years, I created good success with it. We built up a couple of different premises, worked with hundreds of young people and families, and that was like my first step into the world of personal development, because I always say naivety went in my favor. When I first had the idea to start that social enterprise, I didn't know about the personal development world. Coaching wasn't really a thing. And so I didn't know what you were supposed to do. So I was just being guided by what I was inspired to do and to create. And that was why I was able to create the success that I was able to in those days. And it was through doing that work when I would get like regular press coverage and things, people would contact me and say, can you show me how to do what you did? Like, how did you take your passion and turn that into something that you loved and that you enjoyed? And so I then stumbled upon the world of coaching and then entered into the world of personal development and the law of attraction. And it was like this door opened where I found this whole new world that, back in 2013, 2014 was when I first transitioned to online and coaching in the way that I do now. But then, it was only 10 years ago, but it was still relatively new. Like nobody really knew what a coach was or how you were supposed to do business. So again, I found myself in a position where I was doing what I was guided to do and what made sense for me to do. And I was able to build a coaching practice really quite quickly. And it's just evolved over the years of having worked with so many different people from so many different backgrounds and seeing the common threads in terms of what it is that creates success, why people suffer, what is it that creates internal freedom, and just kind of really taking elements from all of the different modalities and things that I've been studying over the years and kind of mashing them together and working with the person that's in front of me in a powerful way to help them transform and transition with whatever shows up.
Wow, that is so impactful and so valuable. You've mentioned a word that is often used really widespread right now, the law of attraction, and the show does address spirituality. How do you define law of attraction?
Yeah. So when I first, so my first introduction to the law of attraction was watching The Secret. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Then I quickly learned that was like a tiny little piece of this much bigger puzzle.
Mm,
And now when I speak about the law of attraction, I actually talk about the law of creation.
mm,
Because I think when we use even the term law of attraction, it's almost like a very passive energy of, oh, if I just think about all of this stuff, it will all just come to me and there's nothing that I need to do. And I'm attracting all of it, good stuff, bad stuff, negative stuff, positive stuff. And I've seen people over time in my career almost use it against themselves in a
mm.
sense of, oh, I daren't think negative thoughts and I need to change everything I think because I'm attracting all of these things. And like I say, now I look at it as the law of creation from the perspective of we are never not creating. We're always creating something. Most of the time, we're totally unaware of what it is that we are creating and the powers that we have as the co-creator. And so I kind of have my own take on manifestation and creation, but very much from this foundation of helping you to see that you are the co-creator. Manifestation, the law of attraction, it's not a passive act, it's a co-creative dance with the powers that you already have.
Oh my goodness, yes. It's very actionable. So
Mm.
often we think of manifestation as I want my dream house, I want my dream life, but we fail to recognize sometimes that our thoughts, behaviors, our actions, who we engage with, how we choose to spend our time are all building blocks for the life that we are truly manifesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And also recognizing that so often I see people who are practicing the law of attraction, but from the idea of, oh, I don't have. And so if I trick myself into saying affirmations and doing certain things, then I'll have, not realizing that they're reinforcing the idea that I don't have, you know? And so it's that there's some really small but powerful distinctions that make the difference between those people that are really able to create what it is they want. And like you said, it's that it takes action. Action is one of the most powerful steps, and we're designed to act, but our action comes from the internal state of our being and who we're creating ourselves as. So we create ourselves internally first in order to then see what it is that we want externally as a byproduct to who it is that we're being internally already, as opposed to visualizing and thinking about all this stuff that we want out there and, you know, hoping that it's going to show up one day.
Mm. I love how you use the word create because I'm picturing my mind, our lives as like a canvas.
Mm.
And we truly are the ones that are holding the paintbrush. We are in control of what that canvas presents and what it looks like. And in the same way that we can want and attract good things, we can sometimes attract negative things, things that we say we don't want, but our internal world is manifesting and creating these things onto this canvas.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's as well seeing that, you know, even the idea of good and bad and I don't want and I do want, all of those are creations that are being experienced within you. And so even little things like language is one of the most powerful tools that we have to create with. Like, I love what you said about the canvas. And to me, our speaking, our words, our language, that's the paintbrush
Mm,
that we have. And so even, you know, looking at our language and being mindful of, instead of, oh, this bad thing's happening to me, we can use the word prefer. I don't
mm,
prefer this, but I would prefer that. And it just kind of shifts the experience that we have over those things, and really seeing that all experience is thought created. So even those things that we perceive as not good and bad, those two will pass as our internal experience changes and our thought moves on as it does. And there's not anything that we necessarily need to do and force in order for that to happen. But the more aware we become, the more expansive our tools of creation get to be.
mm. Let me ask you, do you think as people we find it hard to experience joy?
Do you know, I think it's a natural state. But what happens is there's like, we're created. Again, this is why I love this word, like creation, because it's the foundation of everything. We are born, when you look at infants,
Mm,
and you describe how an infant kind of primarily experiences, oftentimes the word is joy. They're joyful, unless
mhm.
they're hungry or they need changing or something else. But it's like that primary state is joy and innocence and curiosity. That's the foundational state that we're born into. But over time, a false self is created. created. And we develop these layers of conditioning, these layers upon layers upon layers, through which we view the world and experience the world out of. And so these core feelings of joy, of love, of happiness, like they're the things that are our natural state, which is why people love to meditate, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's like when we let go of thought, when we let go of the conditioned self, we experience a state of bliss or joy or awe, whatever words it is you want to use. But in the world we live in today, we're conditioned to look outside of ourselves for happiness, for
Mm-hmm.
joy, for freedom, for all of those things. And it's when we're operating in a world that's back to front, because our experience is actually created from the inside out, not from the outside in. That's why we suffer, and people find it hard to access joy and to access freedom and to access feelings of love, because they're operating from their illusions, believing that that's real and true, as opposed to tapping into who it is they really are.
Yeah, I love that you throw that word conditioning in because it's so true. When we're born, joy, happiness, laughter, like when we think of babies, the innocence, the purity of a baby is what we think of. And then the external, we grow up, we go to school, our family dynamics, our peers, the experience that we have really shapes our internal world, and then we internalize it and we spin it around, and then that's what we start to project out. And so it takes such awareness. I love that word. It takes such awareness for us to sit and say, okay, what is mine? What was mine before this message became ingrained in me? Or what was mine before I was told this is how I needed to live?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we don't realize that we're always being created, and we're always creating ourselves through our stories, through our ideas, through our experiences. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And our words have power.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
we what we speak has value. And so often I think of the phrase, sticks and stones break our bones, but words never hurt. And it's like, no, because words are actually what we are using. They are a verbal representation of what we're creating.
Yeah, absolutely. And the word abracadabra, which everybody knows from magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
The origins of the word abracadabra are Aramaic for I create as I speak. And it's like when you look at the association with that and magic, that is the power that we have. We create our worlds as we speak. We're always speaking ourselves and our words, our worlds into creation through our words, both externally and internally. Like it's such an underestimated power and ability that we
Mm.
have. Language is like the stamp of meaning on life and on experience. And so, and everybody, or most people, are blessed with the ability to speak, to express themselves through their words, externally and internally. But most people have no idea how to become conscious of this tool of creation, their speaking, their language, and to consciously use it in a way to bring forth more of what they want as opposed to more of what they don't want.
Yeah. What do you think is the first step to bringing that into the consciousness?
Yeah, great question. So for me, the first step is always awareness, just being aware of how am I speaking to myself? How am I speaking of myself? What are the first stories and sentences and words that I'm hearing when I wake up in the morning? When I'm using the words I am, what is it that we're putting after that? I am sad. I am a loser. I am lonely. I am this. I am that. Like, how are you speaking to yourself and of your experience of the world? Because that will start to give you an indication into your unconscious identity and how you're actually viewing and operating. Like within 10 minutes of being with somebody, you can really get an understanding of who it is they are, not just from how they're being, but also from how they're speaking about themselves, to themselves, and to others. And
Mhm.
so just beginning to be aware of how am I using the power of the word. And that's a really simple thing that anybody can do. And it's really interesting when you start to notice how you talk to yourself and how often you're talking to yourself internally and externally, and the sort of language patterns that you're using to operate and craft your experience of life.
Absolutely. I recognize this, at least for myself, in music. When I started to be more intentional about the music that I would listen to in the morning, I found my mood was progressively much better to the point I made a manifestation playlist just and I have made it private. I was like, this is simply for me to ensure that I am instilling the messages that I say that I want to instill.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so and that shows you the power of sound, which is ultimately what we're talking about: sound,
Mhm.
language, and how you've only got to watch how a song can come on and it instantly takes you back or transports you to a different place in time and to memories. Like, it's such a powerful tool, and ultimately the tool of vibration, right? And
Mhm.
frequency. Our words, our sounds have so much power behind them. And the more we start to understand, and again, this stuff can be so simple that people overlook it, but and this is what I mean by you already have everything that you need to create what it is that you want. The thing that's generally missing is understanding and awareness.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about how I want to ask this question, but in thinking of the word creation, are you is this always the life that you imagined for yourself?
Good question. Very good question. And my honest answer is no, because I didn't know this existed.
Mm,
It's like I grew up, and the reason I do the work that I do is I experienced being in some of the worst places in life, internally, mentally, and physically
mm,
as well. And during that time, I didn't realize that I was operating from the limitations of my mind. I didn't realize that. So I had an idea that I hated myself and the world hated me
mm,
and the world was a horrible place and I was unlovable. No one wanted me. And my external world absolutely matched that. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was living out of a creation inside of my mind. And there was a moment in time where I literally, as clear as day, heard a thought that I really paid attention to because I felt it within my being, that was,
mm.
life doesn't have to be this way. Your life does not have to be this way. And in that moment, something within me woke up. And I began to transition and turn my life around and chose a very different path that led me on the journey that I'm on today, and to start
Mm.
the social enterprise that I did to prevent other young people experiencing being in that place in life, and to help people wake up to their own magic. And there are moments, like I say, where I say I've had the gift of experiencing the darkest places we can go to in our own minds. And I've experienced the most blissful, joyful places that we can go to in our own minds. And I know
Mhm.
that both are an internal creation. And so I didn't think I would end up where I'm at now, because there were so many things on my journey that I had no idea were possible. No idea whatsoever. And I may say in another 5-10 years that I've experienced other things that I had no idea were possible. But again, it's like the more aware we become, the less afraid we are.
Mm.
And the less afraid we are, the more freedom we have to experience and express and take intuitive action in the direction of what it is we want to create and where we're being led to.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we can have an idea of what it is that we want, and we put in our order of, oh, I want this, but I have to get it this way. And it's got to come like this. When the world doesn't work like that. It's like there's so many quotes in the personal development world, like, step outside of your comfort zone. The magic's outside of your comfort zone. But most people are unwilling to actually do that or know what that actually means, because they haven't built that level of trust and faith within themselves to really take those steps that could sometimes look like they're nowhere near the journey they want to go on, or the destination they're trying to reach. But actually, that's the very thing that leads them to that destination or a greater one.
Yeah. Louise, I just have to sit with what you just shared because what you just spoke to is so true in the sense that people who have experienced so much darkness, when they're able to turn that around and turn it into light, not only for themselves, but for other people, is truly a gift. And so, what you are sharing and what you are choosing to offer is such a gift.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think that's the thing. That's what I really saw, that life is about creation. We only have to look outside of our window and we see that there is constant creation. There is
Mm.
constant expansion, and the more we are creating from our heart, from our soul, and the more we are able to express who it is we really are and what it is that wants to come through us, the more free we become. And It's a game of co-creation, and not just co-creation with us and the universe, but co-creation with us and every single other person that we see walking on this planet. And so, I made a commitment a long time ago when I realized that my life on this planet, like my time here, is to enhance the lives of other people. And when I'm doing that, I'm creating expansion within myself and within others, and the ripple effect. And it's like, how can you not live a more beautiful life when you're committed to a life of service?
100%. Your story it resonates so much with me because as someone who has sat in their thoughts, sat with the deepest parts of themselves, you could not have told me 3 years ago that I would be having this conversation right now, or I would be creating a platform for people to share their light and their stories. And so when I came up with the name All Our Parts, I was like, I want us to be able to include all of ourselves because we're all multifaceted people. And I want people to be able to share their strengths and stories about how they got from point A to point B, what makes them them. And so in creation and the intentionality piece too that you speak to is being so aware of, wow, I am sitting with these thoughts. And at least for me, I realized I was choosing so much of the discomfort and the disappointment that I was experiencing. I was putting myself in a lot of those situations. And so when I sat back and was like, I can make a different choice, it's like, it hurt, it stung a little bit. I was like, oh, wow, I have that much control over what's going on.
Yeah.
Then I realized in the same way that can be from a negative point, I have control over creating a more positive, a more beautiful life that then can turn into a life of service.
Yeah, that's really beautiful and really powerful. And I think as well, like that can be confronting for some people, right? Because walking this path, the path of responsibility for what it is you're creating and experiencing. And when I say that word responsibility, I don't mean to take it all on as, oh, it's all me and it's all my fault. And because, that's not the way to powerfully create either.
Right.
But it's recognizing that, wow, I like exactly like you said, I do have a choice. I am the co-creator. So what now would I love to create? Like that takes courage to take on the realization that everything in my life up until now, I'm not saying that I did everything to me, but your experience of it is co-created by you. And it can be so much easier, or it seems so much easier to sit back and blame and shame other people and kind of put yourself in the space of being a victim of creation as opposed to a powerful co-creator. And it takes looking at your stuff, looking at your dark side, looking at your ego, looking at all of the things and the places that we don't necessarily want to look at, but the freedom that you create and the life that you are able to live on the other end of that. And when you start to see your own innocence and recognize how you're creating all of it, you also get to see it in other people too. And life really does become a more beautiful experience to have.
Yeah. And then you get to reflect back and say, I did the best that I could with what I knew at the time. And then the more, again, that awareness piece, the more that we have new awareness, the more that we have some insight into our patterns, our behaviors, we get to then make different choices. And sometimes that means confronting the things, the people that have hurt us, that have put us in precarious positions. And sometimes saying, you know what? I have to love you from afar. I cannot have you so close to me. I cannot continue to engage in this behavior, in this act, if I want to continue to co-create the life that I am meant to live, which is a life of joy, a life of peace, trying to get ourselves as close to that innocence and that purity of a baby as we can.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's where this comfort zone piece comes in again, because when we're solely holding somebody else responsible for our experience of life, we don't have to move. It's like, oh, I don't have to move. I don't have to do anything. That's the comfort zone that will keep you stuck under the illusion that, it's that comfortable misery as opposed to the uncomfortable zone of growth and expansion and all of the stuff that we can't see on the other side.
Do you think our misery can be comforting though?
Absolutely. So many people are so used to swimming in the land of misery So many people are so used to that, and not just from an internal brain perspective, but from a biological chemical perspective as well. Like we train our bodies.
Mm.
Every single thought that we think, within 100th of a second, there's a chemical reaction released within our body, which creates a feeling. We get used to living in certain feelings. People
Mm.
get used to living in the feeling of stress, in the feeling of high cortisol, in the feeling of misery, in the feeling of drama, of all these different things. And it's so unconscious, we don't realize where we're operating from. And this is why, again, something as simple as starting to be aware of how are you speaking yourself into creation? How are you speaking to yourself internally? How are you speaking to yourself externally? What dialogue do you have running throughout the day about other people, about things, about your situation, about life? Because that will tell you the foundational place from which you're operating from and from which you're comfortable.
Yeah. There's some feelings and things that we just know, and we can live in that space. To your point, stress, overwhelm even. Sometimes we create that overwhelm by maxing out our calendars and making sure that every single hour is filled, which doesn't give us the space to sit. It doesn't give us the space
Yeah.
to meditate or take a step back. And then I so often hear when people who experience high cortisol levels find meditation boring.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you just haven't allowed your body the space to recalibrate, to reset and say, okay, what is the life that I am creating, and what are some things that I could change? And
Yeah.
again, it always goes back to the awareness piece. It's, are there changes that we need to make? And then
Yeah.
if we don't know that there are changes we need to make, then we constantly spin the loop. We spin the cycle of creating those stressful, overwhelming situations, or living in relationships that aren't serving us our highest good.
Mm. Yeah. And a really great question to ask for people that are experiencing those kind of things is, what is the payoff for me staying here? Because there always is one. What is the payoff for me constantly feeling overwhelmed? What is the payoff for me filling my calendar? What is the payoff for me not leaving the relationship that I know is not the right space for me to be in? And there will always be a payoff. It can be an odd question to ask yourself, but there is always something. There's always some part of your unconscious that's serving you powerfully by keeping you stuck there. And that's where you start like getting in to do the work, to be able to create freedom from that payoff, from that thing that keeps creating this same scenario over and over again that you say you don't want, but part of you actually does because it's safe for you to stay there. And so that little question of getting really quiet and asking yourself, like, what is the payoff for me staying stuck in this situation, or for me repeating this pattern, and getting really, really honest with yourself. Because again, listening to your narrative and your dialogue after you ask that question, you'll start to hear the answers. And what we shine the light on, we bring light to, and then we can create freedom from.
Yeah. We've spoken about awareness, and we've spoken about even limiting beliefs, but is there something else in your work that you've seen that we haven't touched on that inhibits us from truly living our best lives?
Yeah, yeah. So another great question. So there's a couple of different things, and I think I kind of touched on this earlier. This is a really key part when it comes to creation and manifestation. This idea of it will be better when. So many people enter the work of law of attraction, personal development, with this idea of, I need to fix and change myself because my life is not good now. I am not good now, and my life will be better when. And so I'm going to do all of this work to fix and change who I am, and all of this work to visualize the future that I want. And we don't realize that operating from that perspective actually keeps us stuck in an unconscious loop of who I am is not enough. What I have is not enough. It will be better when. And I see people stuck in this cycle for years and years and years. Now, the key is you never experience anything outside of the experience internally of having that thing. And so people say to me, oh, I want to be abundant. I want to experience abundance. Right now, I don't have any money. I don't have this. I don't have that. And they're very focused on what they don't have. But this reinforces and creates the idea that I am not and I don't have. And you could ask yourself the question, like, think of 10 ways right now in which you are abundant. And it could be things like, right now we're connected via the internet. really good internet at the
Yeah.
moment, touch wood. But we're connected through internet. We're speaking to each other from different sides of the entire world. I can turn on my tap and I can have cool, fresh, filtered water. I can get in my car and drive to a petrol station and put diesel in my car and drive wherever I want. I can go to the supermarket and buy some fresh bread. Like, there are so many different ways in which we already have and experience the thing that we think we don't have. And when you can step into creation from the end result, you experience having and you experience gratitude. Like, a lot of people do, we'll talk about a gratitude practice, which is fantastic. It's a great place to start, but it's like, can you look to where you already have the thing that you think you want? Because we never want the material object. We always want that thing because of the experience we think it will give us. And so if you can begin to tap into the experience you think the thing will give you and cultivate the feeling of that now, that's a game changer, because you experience not I will be better when, life is not good enough now, and you stop projecting into the future and you begin living in the present moment, because ultimately that's all we have. And our future moments are created in the present moment. And if you're spending all of your present moment thinking, I don't have, I'm not good enough, I need to, it will be better when, guess what you're creating again and again and again and again? More of the same.
Mhm. So much of your work and so much of what you speak to, again, it goes back to our relationship to ourselves. When we
Mm-hmm.
think about our self-esteem, our self-worth, even that comparison piece, when we look out and say, I'm not good enough because I don't have X, Y, and Z, functioning from an abundant place means recognizing I already have so much. We already have so much of what we need to build out those stepping stones. And so focusing on what we don't have, yes, of course, like then we are feeding into the scarcity feeling that we are having rather than allowing ourselves to be present with, what's right in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And the foundation of all of my work is this piece around identity.
Mm.
Who is it that I am? Because most people have no idea who they actually are. And they create themselves through comparison, through judgment, through self-shame and blame. And all of these things, like in those examples that I gave, just those few little things, I can say, I am abundance. I
Mhm.
am creation in action. And we skip a lot of the time, we skip ourselves and we just look to the material and to the thing, and how do we create the material and how do we create the thing that we think we don't have, as opposed to looking first and foremost to who is it that I am, who is it that I'm creating myself as, how can I tap into the experience of already having and being what it is I say that I want now, and operating from that perspective first. Because who we be determines the action that we take, and the action that we take determines the results that we see fundamentally. And most people are operating from behavior first. Like, what are all the things I need to do in order to be abundant? What are all the things I need to do in order to be good enough? What are all the things I need to do in order to be accepted or successful or whatever the other labels are? As opposed to, who is it that I'm being right now? How is it that I'm feeling and creating my experience? And that comes first and foremost from seeing who is it that we really are. And we never ask those questions. We're not taught this stuff. And it's where all the magic and the power lies.
Mm, exactly. What you just spoke to, I mean, man, it's this idea that we as people, we attach our identity to so many external and material things. We attach our identity to our work. We attach our identity to our relationships, even. We attach our identity to how much money we have in our bank accounts. And we don't allow ourselves to look back and say, what do I have right now? Well, I have love. I have hope. I have peace.
Mm.
Those qualities are the things that can propel us, and we can sometimes take them for granted. We can take for granted the simplicities because, again, if we're in a comparison trap of, well, I don't have this or I don't have that, so then therefore I am not worthy. when we sit back and allow ourselves to sit in that gratitude, to sit in that space of recognizing what we can have and what we can cultivate, it's amazing how we can truly shift those limiting beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. When we get outside the idea of ourselves, it's like, you know, everything changes. It's like, I remember hearing this fact that the odds of you, of me being here right now, the odds of us being born, 700 trillion,
Mhm.
700 trillion to one. So the idea that who you are is not worthy, how on earth does that add up? It just doesn't. You are a worthy 700 trillion to one odd of being here. Life is a gift and it is meant to be magical and it is all about experience. We unfortunately are just not taught how experience works and how incredible we are and how powerful we are as creators and the gifts and the magic that we have. And I know for some people hearing this might be a stretch. You know, some people, like you said, might be stuck in that comparison space or, well, no, I don't have joy or I don't have anything to be grateful for. And again, through your speaking, through asking a more powerful question, you can start to ask yourself, well, what would it feel like if I did? What would
Mhm.
it be like if I did? You know, if the stretch of seeing that you already have it is too far, pull it back a little bit and just ask, what would it feel like if I did? What would I be saying to myself internally? How would I be feeling internally? And that can help you to bridge that gap. But it's like, again, I know this stuff because, like what you were sharing as well and what I shared earlier, like I have been to those dark places like a lot of people. And I know if it's possible for me to create change and transformation, it's possible for anyone and everyone. You have within you the gift of magic. Like I say, 700 trillion to one. That's what our brain cannot even compute the zeros on that. So there is no way that you are not worth this life. There is no way that you are not enough.
Mhm. And our brain cannot compute the limitless possibilities that exist for us to create or define our own dream lives. Our brains can conceptualize only a small portion, a small fraction based on conditioning, based on what we see, based on things we already know. But the limitless other possibilities that we don't allow ourselves the space to always explore, that's where we can fall short and sometimes take from ourselves because we're living within, again, the limiting beliefs. We're living within, well, this is what I know, so this is the path that's already designed for me. And again, it takes that sitting with yourselves, doing that deep internal work, that identity work of saying, okay, what is the life that I want to create? And how have I been conditioned to only want very specific things?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I describe it a lot of the time as an undoing, a letting go, you know, of all the layers, of all the ideas, of all the conditioned stuff, and going back to the core of who is it that I am without all of the labels, without all of the ideas, without all of the things that we've been told that we should have in order to be a success or to be whatever. Like when I go beyond all of that, what is left? Who am I? And what would I absolutely love to feel and to experience in my life, in my time here?
Yes. Louise, this was such a great way to start my day. Thank you so much for, taking this time out. As we close out, what is one piece of advice that you would like to leave?
One piece of advice would be that you can create whatever it is that you want, even if you don't believe you can. You don't have to fully believe in yourself or in what it is that you want in order to start doing this work. I think a lot of people think, well, I have to get to a certain place first and then I will. You have everything you need right now. And the greatest gift that you can give yourself is to start waking up to who it is that you're being, how it is that you're seeing the world, how it is that you're speaking to yourself, to other people, and just start seeing and observing. Become the observer as opposed to being so locked into your false identity that you can't see the beautiful creation and the magical possibilities that are open to you.
Thank you so much. Louise, how can people find you if people find themselves wanting to work with you or just, reach out?
Yeah. Well, my website, louisedanielle.com, and I've actually got a free PDF ebook on there that talks about 6 transformational shifts for success. So some of the things that I've touched upon today, but also some additional steps. And there's it's a really powerful guide for how to do this work for those that want to get started or those that have been doing it for a while and aren't finding the results that they want. And also on all the socials as well, Louise Danielle, you can reach out to me, email me, message me. Happy to answer any questions and to pop back on your episode as well. If anyone puts any comments underneath, leave them here, and I can come back and circle back round and answer anything.
Yes, I would love to have another conversation with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been fabulous.